the cat who dreamed of flying. In the heart of a bustling city, there lived a tabby cat named Misifu. Misifu was no ordinary cat, for since he was a kitten, he had yearned to soar through the skies like the birds he saw from his window. His days were spent watching the seagulls dancing among the clouds and the sparrows zigzagging through the branches, imagining the freedom they felt as they defied gravity. One night, as Misifu slept peacefully in his favorite corner, a magical dream enveloped him. In this dream, he found himself in a vast green field, bathed in moonlight. Suddenly, he felt a strange sensation on his back and, to his astonishment, he found himself covered in feathers. With an instinctive impulse, he flapped his new wings and lifted off the ground, feeling the wind caress his fur. Misifu flew high, higher than he had ever flown before, enjoying the panoramic view of the sleeping city. The twinkling lights looked like tiny stars, and the buildings resembled small toys. The feeling of freedom was indescribable, and Misifu laughed out loud as he performed pirouettes in the air. However, in the midst of his joy, a strong gust of wind shook him and made him descend abruptly. His feathered wings vanished, and Misifu found himself back in his bed, his heart pounding and the sensation of flight still fresh in his memory. He woke up with a slight tinge of sadness, as he knew that his dream had been just that, a dream. But despite the disappointment, a spark of hope ignited within him. Misifu got up with determination and approached the window, looking at the sky with new eyes. Misifu didn't give up. Day after day, he observed the birds carefully, studying their movements and learning from their grace. He practiced acrobatic jumps from the furniture in the house, imagining himself soaring above the clouds. One night, under the silver light of the full moon, he decided to put what he had learned into practice. With a feline impulse, Misifu ran towards the open window and jumped with all his might. At first, he only fell a few centimeters, but he didn't get discouraged. He closed his eyes tightly and focused all his energy on his desire to fly. Suddenly, he felt a strange sensation of weightlessness, as if an invisible force was lifting him off the ground. He opened his eyes and, to his surprise, he was floating in the air. He had no wings, but somehow magically, he could control his body and move fluidly around the room. The moon seemed to be looking at him with complicity, as if encouraging him to continue his journey. Misifu flew all over the house, exploring corners he had never seen before from that perspective. He perched on the ceiling lamp, observing the room from above like a king. He slid down the hallway, brushing the walls with his tail as if caressing an invisible canvas. The feeling of freedom was intoxicating, and Misifu couldn't contain his joy. However, in a moment of carelessness, he bumped into a vase and knocked it to the floor. The noise startled him and made him lose his concentration. Suddenly, the feeling of weightlessness vanished, and Misifu began to plummet towards the ground. He closed his eyes tightly, waiting for the impact. But when he opened them, he found himself safe and sound in his bed. The moon was no longer shining in the sky, and the sun was beginning to peek over the horizon. Had it all been a dream? Misifu wasn't sure, but one thing was certain: the experience had been so real that he couldn't erase it from his memory. He got out of bed with a smile on his face, feeling a new determination in his heart. He knew that somehow, he would find a way to fulfill his dream of flying. The following days, Misifu continued his attempts to fly, but without success. The feeling of weightlessness only came in his dreams, and frustration began to take hold of him. One night, as he watched the moon with sadness, a soft light illuminated his room. Suddenly, a magical figure appeared before him. It was an old woman with a warm smile and eyes that sparkled like stars. She wore a sky blue dress and a magic wand in her hand. Misifu looked at her in amazement, not knowing what to say. "Don't give up, little cat," the old woman said in a soft voice. "Your desires are pure, and your heart is full of dreams. You just need a little help to achieve them." With a wave of her magic wand, the old woman touched Misifu's head. In that instant, Misifu felt a magical energy coursing through his body. His paws became lighter, his fur shimmered with a silvery hue, and behind his ears, 2 small wings sprouted. "Now you can fly, Misifu," the old woman said with a smile. "Use your wings wisely and remember that true power lies in the strength of your will." With that, the old woman disappeared in a flash of light, leaving Misifu stunned and full of joy. He looked in the mirror and saw his new appearance reflected. The wings were small, but strong enough to lift him into the air. Without a second thought, Misifu ran to the window and jumped. This time, there was no fall. His wings spread gracefully and lifted him into the night sky. The moon greeted him with a smile, as if it had been waiting for him all this time. Misifu flew over the city, enjoying the panoramic view and the feeling of freedom. The lights of the houses shone like fireflies in the darkness, and the wind caressed his fur like a gentle caress. However, a storm was brewing on the horizon. Dark clouds swirled in the sky, covering the moon and heralding a turbulent night. Misifu knew he had to get home before the storm hit him. Misifu flew with all his might, trying to dodge the gusts of wind and raindrops that fell from the sky. The storm raged furiously, illuminating the night with blinding lightning. The little cat felt scared, but also determined not to give up. Suddenly, a lightning bolt struck very close to him, and the force of the explosion caused him to lose control. Misifu began to plummet, not knowing what to do. He closed his eyes tightly, expecting the worst. But at that moment, he remembered the old woman's words. "Use your wings wisely and remember that true power lies in the strength of your will." With an act of faith, Misifu opened his eyes and spread his wings with all his might. In that instant, something magical happened. The wind around him calmed down, and the clouds parted to make way for the moon, which shone with a light brighter than ever. Misifu felt enveloped by a warm and comforting energy. His wings grew stronger, and he was able to control his flight with a precision he had never felt before. He flew into the storm, facing the wind and rain with courage. After a few minutes, the storm had passed. Misifu found himself flying over a clear sky, with the full moon illuminating his path. He felt exhausted, but also full of immense joy. He had managed to overcome his fear and fly above the storm. He returned home safe and sound, and from that day on, he never doubted his ability to fly again. His dream had come true, and now he could soar through the skies as he had always dreamed. Misifu became a symbol of hope for other animals. His story taught them that with determination and willpower, even the most difficult dreams can come true. And so, the little cat who dreamed of flying became a legend, inspiring all those who dared to pursue their dreams, no matter how impossible they seemed.